second, so if you guys will get going, I'm gonna call him.
Okay.
I did speak to him, previously, and he said he would be here.
Okay, thank you. Will the city please call us to order? Or I should say,
You call it.
I call us to order. Will the city please take roll call?
Charlie, you want to do roll call?
Sure.
Dr. Zeiser,
Present.
Mr. Hart,
Here.
Ms. Mullins.
Present.
All right.
I believe we have a
3 for 5, sir. You have a quorum.
Thank you very much. I believe we have a report from the staff, Ms. Janice Fleet.
Thank you very much. I'm gonna go through my staff report, which is up on the PowerPoint. A minute ago it was. Next page, I think. Oh, there it is.
Is this it?
Yes. Okay. So, just to give you a little background, Mr. Joe Wiggins, has purchased a property that was previously a PUD, and he is renaming it Sunrise Estates. It's off of Sunrise Boulevard at Paradise Point. It was originally, so he is a property owner. It is, is one parcel of 13.88 acres there at Sunrise and Paradise Point. It's an area, it's kind of a corner of it, northeast. You have the cemetery and the industrial warehouse area. There's a clay utility electric easement that's at that border. Then your southeast, you have the city park commercial development, and then you have the southwest is single family, and then the west is actually some Alachua County, and it's a residential, vacant residential. So in 2022, the property was rezoned to allow a development of 52 single family homes. They were detached. Each of them have a minimum of about 6,000 square foot, 6,050 square feet. The rezoning request, and it's PUD to PUD, since an existing plan unit development, he's requesting an amendment to that PUD development. A plan unit development is basically a specific zoning for a specific parcel, and you have it's tied to a written description which was submitted, and as well as a site plan. If they change either of those, which is what he's requesting to do, he has to come back and do another rezoning. So basically the one that was approved with a site plan and it allowed 52 single family detached units, he's coming back, and since he's wanting to amend that site plan to increase it to 60 dwelling units, so it's increasing 12, and to allow both single family detached, which is basically conventional single family, and to allow which would be 44 single family detached, and then the remainder to be single family attached or townhomes.
I believe the townhomes are going in parcel or lot 1 through 8.
Right, that's what was originally 1 through 8, but in that area. And so it would be 16 single family attached homes, so they'll doubling the number. So because of that, he's coming for you. He already previously, just for information, came to the council on the 9th, last week, for a tree mitigation plan, because when the last PUD was approved, they never dealt with the trees. So that was approved by the council last week, and that was one of the requirements when we get to conditions, he'll have to go over. So just a little background, when you do PUD, it's basically a back and forth. He can ask for things. You as the board can recommend to the council, who is the ultimate approval, additional conditions or changes. If you don't like the site plan, if you want to add something to the written description, you're allowed to do that. And he has, goes back and forth, and ultimately the council can put a condition on it, hopefully that he accepts. But it's kind of back and forth, unlike conventional rezonings, where if you ask for residential single family, you're allowed to do those things. It has to meet all your codes. If it doesn't, you can't do anything. This is more limited. It can be restricted, limited, and things like that. Okay, you gotta go down. So basically, I just went over in the staff report. There's some maps just to give you. There's an aerial, but let's see why they're not coming out. Anyway, to give you an idea where the subject property is.
Are you doing a parcel map or are you going
going a little further.
Yeah, that's the parcel map, and then the next map is the area, which gives you an idea. There's 2 maps or whatever, but it's if you got it there. So you get an idea where it's at, where the 13 acres is.
Going up, Dixie.
It's okay.
Did you find it or no? There. Okay, so you can see that, there it is. So there's a subject parcel, and the parcels around, as I said, there's Paradise Point and Sunrise. If you move down, you can see the aerial of where that parcel that's kind of outlined in the teal, and the development that's around it that I just previously discussed. If you go to the next page of the staff report, it's a future land use map. So it is single family, and if you read, it says residential single family, but when you read the description of residential single family in your comprehensive plan, which this land use map ties to, it allows townhome. They just have to be up to 6 units or less than 6 units per acre, which this development is. And it's interesting, your zoning map that's online, it doesn't even really show it, but we know the zoning is PUD. But if you move down, you can also see in the land use that there's a lot of commercial by that parcel and where we're at. If you saw in the land use, that red is commercial. You see the commercial around the parcel, which makes this kind of a good transitional because it's kind of different from all the, it's not in the middle of a single family traditional development area. You keep going. There's the zoning, as I said, and then keep going. The flood, there is no flood or wetlands on the property, which is good for development. And you can see that yellowish where that part down by the lake, there is some flood zone, but it's obviously away from this parcel. So when you get into the actually, move down a little bit more. So that one of the keys is when we're doing a rezoning, we need to make sure that it's consistent with your comprehensive plan, which later tonight we're going to talk a little bit more about. But right now, any rezoning needs to be consistent with your comprehensive plan. As I mentioned, your future land use map for the property is residential. And when you read policy LU 1.4.1A, it says residential and this is right from your comprehensive plan. Residential dwelling unit, single family attached, mobile homes, multifamily are allowed. And then you can have recreational facilities are designed to serve that development. Key is and it also says the maximum density is 6 units per acre. Proposed development is a mix of single family detached and single family attached dwelling. The density for the development proposed is 4.3 dwelling units per acre, which is less than the allowable density of 6 units per acre. The site plan submitted indicates 2 access points on Sunrise Boulevard. The FLEMA memo will be compatible with the development in the area. It'll provide a transition between the industrial, commercial development in the area and the residential development in that area, because it's kind of a mix there. The water and sewer will be provided by CCUA, and they have the capacity to provide the water, and the developer will have to make sure of that, and he'll also have to pay for any extension of the water or sewer to the site. The land, as I mentioned, is not in the flood zone. They don't seem to have any wetlands, and the soils are suitable for development. And development of the site would have to be permitted by any appropriate agencies to ensure the development on the site does not have any negative impacts on surrounding neighbors, i.e. they're going to have to do retention so that runoff does not go unneighborhood. The staff recommendation is to rezone the parcel, the 13.88 parcel from PUD to PUD. It's consistent with the goals, objectives, and policy of the comprehensive plan, and is recommended approval with the following conditions. And as I mentioned, because of the PUD, you can add conditions. These are some that staff recommended. You have the option to add some. The approval is based on the application submitted on February 28th and signed by Joseph B. Wiggins. That's out of the report that's included. The development must comply with the written description and the site plan submitted in that application. The development must comply with the tree mitigation that I mentioned was approved by the City Council last June, and all utilities will be underground. And the development will comply with your Article 14, which is Section 17-145 through Section 51 of the Keystone Heights Land Development Regulations. And I know that's a lot, but I'm here for any questions, and then you also ask, if you don't have any questions for me, you'll then open the public hearing, and I know the applicant's here to give his.
Just a couple, procedural more than anything else, and perhaps our city attorney can clarify things. Where are we in this process? I know we had an extensive, I would call it a trial, an administrative trial, over this particular parcel with another owner about a year and a half, 2 years ago. And the ultimate result was the PUD was approved, but then there was a hang-up concerning trees. Now, you've addressed that. Apparently, that's been resolved by city council. Are we, and you mentioned it in your presentation, that this might be a rezoning from PUD to PUD. I'd have to differ with that. This is not really a rezoning. It's already zoned PUD. We're amending the existing PUD. Is that correct, council?
So when you amend a PUD, Ms. Weeks right, what happens is the statute views it as a rezoning because you're changing the conditions. Even though you're within the same category, it's considered a rezoning.
Are we still in the open site plan phase? I assume that we are, because then that's when section 17-150 amendments kicks in, and I'm assuming that's what we're under right now. Is that correct?
Because if he was just like
Because
tweaking.
otherwise, the petitioner would have to come back and apply for complete rezoning and have to go through the whole hoops again. But if the site plan phase is still open, which I think it probably is, under the facts, then he doesn't. But I just want a clarification on that.
I'm gonna, he has applied for a new rezoning, and I'm gonna let Rich, as Rich said, it is because the rezoning that was approved was for 52 units, single family attached. Since he's increasing it to 60 and adding the townhomes, it is considered a rezoning because he's changing what was approved in the ordinance that was approved, which limited number and type of units. So it is, it's technically, yes, it's an amendment, but the way the process is as your city attorney said, it's a rezoning.
So it goes beyond minor adjustments as referred to in section 17-150.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
Correct, yes,
Okay,
that
so
is
basically
correct.
we're back to square one.
Correct.
So I would say that the city council on this board would probably want to keep all of the, or a majority of the conditions that were there, with the exception of the ones specifically that you're being asked to review the change. So there were other conditions, and I apologize, I don't remember them all off the top of my head, but when we went through that kind of mini trial, that the city council had kind of imposed on the, Mr. Duggar at that point. So you don't want to let go of those, and my understanding is you're not planning to, but when you're talking about the particular density that would allow a little bit higher, allow some multifamily, getting away from a certain number of the single family homes, as well as the tree mitigation.
So you could consider, or we could consider the mini trial results and what transpired after that as precedent that we could layer upon now, and in effect treat this as an amendment to an already existing PUD, even though its terminology might be different.
Well, what I was gonna
Yes,
say
you
is,
can.
yeah.
We can do that, okay.
And you can add as another condition that says any spec conditions that were approved previously are included in this PUD.
All right.
So probably similar ordinance language, you would want to have, from what you're describing, you'd want to have something that says, any prior conditions that are not inconsistent with this order, this recommendation shall remain in full force and effect.
I will make a motion to that effect and request a second on my motion.
So go ahead and second you.
Call the question.
Yep.
This is on just adding that or,
No, to treat what we've done up to this, what the council has done up to this point as locked in, and now what we're doing is in effect tweaking or modifying what the council has already done. Is that a fair statement?
That's fine.
Okay. So we have a motion and a second.
Get motion to second, we'll call the vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Seem to have unanimous vote there, city.
You do?
Okay, thank you.
so that's an additional condition. You do need to open the public hearing and have the applicant, you guys want to say.
So, but you still need to make a decision on what the application for the request is. So you asked to keep everything the way it was. What is before you vote on what the applicant's request is, then we would have to have a public hearing.
And I would view this as an amendment in that 17-150 would control as to whether or not this is simply a minor adjustment, or if it's not a minor adjustment, go back to the rezoning petition, but we've already said the rezoning petition is bootstrapped. So I think we're now back to where we're looking at the required site plan phase. Is that the phase we would be in?
Yes.
Okay.
Well-
It's not really the site plan, this is zoning. So zoning just tells you what you're allowed to do with the property.
Mhm.
The site plan's gonna come after, as part of the development order.
But to do the amendments, my reading of 17-150, you do it during the required site plan phase, and I think we have to make the finding that we are still in the required site plan phase.
I don't know that you
that-
need to make a finding for that, because it's actually a subsequent phase to the rezoning.
Okay.
Yeah, in a PUD, the site plan is required with the application.
I'm just looking at the language of
I-
17-150.
Yeah, no, I know, and I read
I'm
it
trying to
too.
make it fit.
Right, I understand, but I think what we're doing a PUD to PUD rezoning, because since he's increasing the number as well as increasing the type, it has to go through the whole process, but to add any conditions that the council put previously is what you're asking.
So
to
17-150 really doesn't pertain.
Right, that's why he has to comply with it when it's, as it moves
That
forward.
clarifies, thank you.
Yes, yes. So, okay. You wanna open the public hearing and ask Abby?
Are you complete your briefing?
Yes, unless you have any other questions, and then I'm here for any other questions.
There you go. We'll open up the place here for public comments, should anyone wish to speak.
Hey, my name is Rob Shackelford. I live at 7105 Paradise Point Drive. I was here through the whole trial phase of this, or whatever you want to call it. I live at the three-way stop on the lake. I don't have a problem with this. I think Mr. Wiggins is a much more qualified builder and developer than Jed Duckrow was. He had absolutely no business, trying to fully complete that project. I do have a couple concerns, and maybe y'all can address them, or Mr. Wiggins can. The first is, there's a sinkhole on that property. Now, Jed had two engineering soil tests done. The first one came back and said probable sinkhole. Somehow he got the guy to go back out there, and then it came back and said probable burrow pit from the 1940s or 30s or something like that. It's a 25-foot deep sinkhole that a former owner, I believe, pushed all the pine trees. If you notice, there's not many pine trees left on that chunk of land. It's all oaks. Pushed them in there, filled it in with fill dirt. That's why there's big piles of dirt. He had extra dirt. So it's my understanding that is in the retention pond. So how are we putting a 25-foot deep filled in sinkhole into a retention pond? That's supposed to be a wet pond, I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong. Second, if I remember right, the high school approved that neighborhood for like 12 slots. The elementary school gave 11 reservations. Where are those kids gonna go to school? And you check the packet or whatever from Jed's trial. Where are those kids gonna go to school? Because if you have 60 properties, the majority of those are gonna be owned by families with children. They've gotta go to school, whether high school or elementary school. Third topic would be traffic. Recently, last week or the week before, some idiot did 70 miles an hour down that road and killed some people coming out onto 100. That road sucks. How do I know? Because I know. It's hard to get out at McDonald's with no light. We're about to add, 120 plus vehicles multiple times a day in and out. They have two ways to go. They can go to McDonald's or they can come to the three-way stop. So the last factor to do with traffic, and I could be wrong on this, I believe when they did the traffic study, it was when kids weren't in school. So that road is highly, highly traveled when school's in session. and would greatly impact the travel statistics if that test or study was done in a period when school was not in session. I don't have a problem with the neighborhood. It's already been approved. I fought my battle. Mr. Wiggins is much more qualified. If he can make it look like what Denmark's done over off 214 on the dirt road, I would be a happy camper. The lots aren't going to be that big, but those two little cul-de-sacs are respectable. What Jed, with the builder he brought in here, was going to do is it would have been a crap hole in 10 to 15 years, guaranteed. All I've done for 23 years is buy and sell houses. All I do now is loan money to real estate investors. So I know real estate, I know building houses, I know fixing houses, I know what happens in neighborhoods. That's my forever home. I've got 6-year-old triplets being raised there. I do not want a dump across the street from my house. I don't think it's gonna be a dump. Traffic is my main concern. Safety for people leaving that neighborhood, living in that neighborhood, my family, you know, at 100. And then, I mean, the sinkhole has always been a real big problem. If you look at it, you've got Lake Brooklyn's a sinkhole. When I was a boy, a sinkhole ate a house in the Park of the Palms. You've got the sinkhole there. My lake's a sinkhole. I used to fist fight at Turtle Pond. It's a straight line, okay? It's legitimately,
I fist fight at school on
it's
that.
legitimately a sinkhole fault runs through there. There's an underground river or something. It's something that should be considered because Jed's Engineering, they did 15 borings on a 14-acre property. That's not enough to find voids. That's all I got. Thank you.
Thank you.
Joe Wiggins, 91 Branscombe Road, Suite 17, Green Cove Springs, Florida. I'm here to answer questions. I can give you a little bit of us. When I say us, it's my sons and me, right? We've been in Clay County, I've been in Clay County 50 years. We've been building in this company 15 years. We've been building in Keystone about 3.5 years, everything from starter homes to $1 million homes. We've been a property owner in Keystone for 20 years, the Lake House in Geneva. I've been the magistrate for Keystone for about 7 or 8 years now. Not a whole lot of activity with that because your staff does a great job with code enforcement. So that's who we are. We bought this property from Jed. Yeah, questionable things. We've been Builder of the Year for Clay County a number of years. We've worked with the Housing Finance Authority of Clay County about 15 years. So, you know, we're consistent. We won't, being a part of the community, we want to make sure that this thing does look great. And I've met with Nina previously when we first bought the property about trying to see what we can do, how to make it look like some of the older houses here. But in fairness, right, these are 55-foot wide lots. And so we're limited as to what we can do. One of the things that I like and what we do with our starter homes is we include garages. It's just a personal thing of mine that if somebody has a garage, at least they have a place to put stuff. And so the reason I'm telling you this is right now we have a 55-foot wide lot, we have setbacks, now the front, there's a garage, you know, that's roughly 20 feet. So that limits the front elevation as to what we can do to make it look like, you know, some of the historical homes here. But we're open to talk about it, and I'd be glad to run plans, you know, by
Can you do
whatever
a rear
community.
load or a side load? Would that affect anything?
It does, right? So, well, it affects cost.
I understand.
Yeah.
But you had discussed front end elevation and how it would reflect the historical appearance of what we already have.
Sure, fair question. But this is 55-foot wide lots. You limit what the market's going to bear for it.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you do rear entry at 55 feet and then the setback, when you turn into a garage, you need a minimum of 23 feet to be able to make that turn. And so now that really makes a shotgun house, right?
Okay.
Or some kind of odd shaped
I
house.
understand.
Plus it doesn't give a backyard. I'm a proponent of kids getting outside, so we like to provide covered back porches. It doesn't mean a lot, but when you add all these little things up, I'm trying to tell you why we designed the way we designed, and what we do. So we've been doing the attached homes. It's fee simple. It's you own the land underneath it. These are all going to be for sale, not rentals. We've been doing them 14, 15 years, and they meet a need, right? The affordability is crucial. We're building in High Ridge Estates, and we started 275, out there. But in the city, there isn't much here unless you're going to buy an older home. Okay, so what does an older home do? You have limited design, you have energy efficiency issues, you don't have the garage space, and now you're kind of waiting for somebody to move or to die off or that house to come available. I did a, how many houses were on the market last week? I think there were 8 in this city, right? So there's not a whole lot of movement. So the attached housing also provides the affordability of somebody who wants to start out or wants to retire. They don't want a big yard. And in our 14, 15 years of doing the attached, they are well received. And then from there, we also have, I kind of see this as a test. And the reason we did lots 1 through 8 to change is because those are the closest to the commercial. Typically in theoretical planner book, you kind of separate the single family detached from the commercial, right? And so this is kind of a little bit of a buffer for that. But I'm also using this as a test pattern for, we have the 50 acres, 21 in commercial, right? So we don't have a master plan. Does this show us as a community that multifamily maybe is wanted, right? And then we could possibly incorporate some of that, over there. So that's my story. I'm here to answer any questions.
So the question was posed, the multifamily lots, the 8 of them, where would they park?
Yeah, they all have 2-car garages.
There we go.
Yep. So,
Thank you.
Yeah.
So your previous gentleman had a few concerns.
Yep.
And we all know they're very valid. But of the 3, there's a few that I don't think you can manage, just because it's outside of your AOR. Traffic control, I think, falls under FDOT. The part that doesn't fall under FDOT would probably be the private drive, Sunrise, and the adjacent, whichever one this one is here. Yeah, Sunrise and Paradise Point. Is there anything that you might be able to address your neighbors, your potential neighbors' concerns as far as traffic control in those areas?
It's tough, Mr. Sharp. Do we do another traffic? I mean, this was already approved. Do we do another traffic study? And what? I don't think it's going to change.
It is
to be
what
honest,
it is,
right?
yeah.
That's why I'm asking.
Yeah,
Something I know there's nothing you can do with 100. That's an FDOT thing.
Yep. So we don't have any houses facing Sunrise, right? You have to come in, so there's no driveways. Other than that, I'm not really sure what you would ask for. The one thing of his list
It's
is
a brainstorm session.
yeah, sure. is the soil testing. I'll be glad to do another independent soil testing.
That was next.
And I don't mind contacting you. We could walk it together.
Voids are the only, we purchased a 5-acre lot in Ocala. And by the grace of God, one of the soil borings that the engineer did was gonna be where a retention pond was. Well, it found an unopened void 10 feet underground. It could be 1,000 years before that opens up. However, that is legitimately, nobody can argue there's a fault there with all the sinkholes in a line, almost a perfect line. So my concern would be what's under the rest of the 14 acres potentially that has not opened up yet. It could be 5 feet under and never open. It could be 50 feet under and open in a year and swallow a house. I think that's a legitimate concern. And then the actual sinkhole that's been filled in where the retention pond's gonna go would be another concern, because I'm pretty positive it's full of old pine trees and fill dirt. And if it's full of pine trees, then those are gonna rot and deteriorate, and eventually that's gonna come down, settle, and it's gonna look like a void. And if there is any kind of sinkhole concern or claim, then all of us in that area are not gonna be able to get insurance, or it's gonna be much more expensive because of a sinkhole claim or a potential sinkhole. And again, those are just my concerns. And then where are the kids gonna go to school? Or is that something that can be renegotiated with the school board.
Well, there's a ratio that the school system puts out per single family and full detached and single family attached, right? And so this well meets the needs, right? That's all I can really do. I understand your concern in general, and then P&Z has to address it, city council has to address it, but I have to look at the numbers, and the numbers work for this, situation.
Okay.
Joe, I know you were involved in the duck row thing. In fact, you probably sat through that trial, and it seemed to go on forever. So you're already aware of the sinkhole issue. You have assumed that risk. You will have some sort of a duty to identify and it, if it exists, and identify and give prospective buyers some sort of a heads up. So I think the risk is past you. We can't base our decision or recommendation just on conjecture. I know this could open up next week. It could open up 1,000 years from now, as you stated.
Sure.
As far as the traffic pattern, looking at yours and Duck Row's, streets look the same to me. I don't see any change.
No, I didn't either.
No, so that satisfies me as far as traffic. Of course, the traffic, we pretty much beat that to death at the trial. So that's all I have for now.
It's good.
I just wanted to say that the school impact, that's part between him and Clay County, you have concurrency that the city is part of, and they will have to, school will have to give impact. If there is a problem, he would have to give mitigation, but pretty much the way Clay County is, the way with the neighborhoods, with the way they have the concurrency service areas and things like that, it's he'll have to pay the impact fee, which is different between a single family, detached and attached, but if there was a problem with schools, he would have to deal with mitigation with the school board, as per the interlocal agreement with schools that all the municipalities within Clay County approved. So.
I do have just couple other questions. How is the townhomes, how are they gonna be titled? Are they gonna be titled in the individual owners like a condo? It's not gonna be an apartment building owned by one entity.
Yeah.
It's fee simple, so you
That's gonna be my
own
question.
the building and the land just like a regular house.
So it's a zero lot
So
line?
it's a zero lot
Okay.
line.
Yes.
Okay.
Our plan is to do 4 units in a building, have a space, 4 units, have a space.
And the other thing is, he's gonna have to get when I had that condition about approval of agencies, he's gonna have to get a water management district permit for the retention.
Mhm.
And I guarantee you, he's gonna have to do geotechnical to make sure that the pond isn't gonna sink in.
Yeah, I figured there's gonna be a geotech survey.
Yeah, some point like that.
Now, in my line of work, we are not allowed to say that word. We have to call it a subterranean anomaly.
Whatever you wanna call it, but yes, that's it. And I will, if based on your what you discussed, we'll get that list of conditions that were approved as part of that trial to make sure that's included when, whatever recommendation you have in council, but it will be included.
Joe, I would assume that you or your corporation or your entity will be the homeowners association for a while until there's a turnover to the owners. Is that essentially how it's gonna work?
Yes, majority.
And during that phase, you'll have plat restrictions. And will the plat restrictions have any say as far as short-term rentals? Airbnb.
Sure.
We can't regulate Airbnb, that's what the state, perhaps our council could speak to this, but I think you could, as a private developer, have a provision in there, say you can't have short-term rentals.
So you're correct, that local governments have been preempted from regulating short-term vacation
Correct.
rentals. However, there are homeowner associations that do impose those types of restrictions.
And that I would strongly urge be part of the package.
I think it's something that the applicant has to or can consider. I don't know that we can
I don't
require it.
I don't know if we can or not. We're getting a little far afield from land use, but still, it would be something that would make me a lot more comfortable.
Is there an issue in Keystone Heights with short-term rentals?
I don't know if there've been any
So
real issues,
the
perhaps.
expectation is, as the lakes come back, that this may be more of a short-term rental type
Yeah.
community. That's
Okay.
been voiced throughout the community.
I would just think from a business standpoint, especially with the townhomes, that there might be some friction between people moving in and out of the townhomes on a short-term basis with the more settled homeowners that are on single family lots. I can just kind of envision that as being a selling point, if you were going to say they can't have short-term rentals for that reason. We can't do anything about it.
Sure.
We can just make a suggestion.
Do you mind if I bring this topic up at the city council meeting? Just get
No.
feedback? Okay.
No, you're free to, at the council meetings, there's a section just like we have here for public discussion, and that's an open forum.
And as I understand it, perhaps council can clarify this, we're just gonna make a recommendation, this is gonna get bounced back to the council anyway. And of course, that would be fair game, at least I would think it would be fair game as far as how the area would look, parked cars, noise, and that sort of thing that the people just don't wanna buy a house and live next to. That's all I have.
You got anything, Mr. Kerr?
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
So we're still in public comment, just if there's any other public comment. And then it can return to the board for any further deliberation and motion.
I don't think that we received your recommendation, Ms. Fleet. Could you, on the record, just state your educational background, and then as an expert, you could give your opinion?
Sure. So, I'm Janice Fleet, and I have a master's in planning from the University of Florida. I've been doing planning in Northeast Florida for probably over 30, 40 years. I started in the city of Jacksonville, and I've represented a lot of small communities in Clay County as a planning consultant, Green Coast Springs for many years, Penny Farms, and now I'm working in I've been requested by the city to help them with planning issues, and I've been gone before the Fourth Circuit still, is it Circuit Court? Yeah, I've been an expert witness in planning on numerous cases, I remember the American Institute of Certified Planners, which is an organization, a national organization. You have to take a test and have a certain amount of CEUs to maintain that certification every year, so.
Just for me, and hopefully for the rest of the board, I think you've stated your qualifications, and you are qualified as an expert to give us your opinion.
I have been, there's been judges that have said that, so I would think that, yes.
Did you ask her for opinion?
So if you look at the last page of the staff report, paragraph number 9, there are recommendations that based upon the 13.88 parcel located on Sunrise Boulevard, the application from PUD to PUD is consistent with the goals, objectives, and policies of the Eastland Heights Comprehensive Plan, and is recommended for approval with the following conditions: that the approval is based on the application dated February 28, 2025, that the development must comply with the written description and site plan submitted in that same application, that the development must comply with the tree mitigation plan approved by the City Council on June 9th, that all utilities would be underground, that the development must comply with Articles 14, specifically Section 17-145 through 17-151 of the Land Development Regulations. And then in addition to that, there was some discussion about you'd like it so that it complies with any prior recommendations from the 2022 PUD rezoning that are not inconsistent with this application. And then I would say the fifth one, let's go back one, it should comply with all developments of Land Development Code that are not specifically varied from or waived as part of the PUD application.
Do you agree with the council's statement?
Yes, I do.
Let's
I
say for
never,
record.
I never argue with Rich.
Everyone else does.
No, yes, and I agree, it needs to comply with that, and we will get, the list of any conditions that came out of that court case to make sure that the council has them when they make their recommendation, but you are the recommending as local planning agent to the council, yes, which I think.
The next step will be to make a motion to approve.
So I'll make a motion to approve.
No.
Sorry.
Generally, the chair does not make a motion or second,
You're right.
so you're kind of guiding the circus here, so.
He's guiding it.
We'll have.
Yeah, a little more experience than I do.
You need to close the public hearing now first.
Yeah, you can close the public hearing.
One last call, public hearing. All right, we will close that portion of the public hearing.
From the sounds of it, there may be a motion to adopt or to approve the application with the subsequent recommendations.
I would move that the application be adopted or accepted and referred to city council with the recommendations as read into the record. And that the suggestions concerning, use of the property, even though we can't control that, be at least mentioned to city council. So that's my motion.
So now, one of the other two of you needs to make a second if you agree to that motion.
Second.
Okay, so with a motion and second, now, Mr. Sherry, can you call for a vote?
Call for a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. We have a unanimous vote, sir.
Thank you.
So, this is the point for our discussion here. I just want to say, I want to wish Mr. Ivy fair winds and following seas as he has decided to pursue another endeavor. And I want to welcome Gregory here, who's sitting on my left, to the board. And I want to thank everyone here for their attendance and their comments, and the city for their hard work in putting all this stuff together, to Ms. Fleet for your recommendation and all the work that you did for us. Anybody else have anything they would like to add?
We have another item to go over.
I'm sure we do, and I'm sure I skipped it.
I just want to let you know.
So we're gonna have some brief discussion on the, what are called ERA amendments. So every 7 years, the statute requires us to do what's called an evaluation and appraisal report. This is the time where generally the city as a whole has to make decisions on, sometimes there are statutory changes, the laws that change, and we need to update our land development regulations to conform with that. In addition, there may be some other visioning type work that the city, whether through planning and zoning committee or through the city council, desire to see, because you anticipate development coming based on population growth. And you may want to change some of that future land use map in your land development regulations. So I know Ms. Fleet's got a presentation she's prepared for me.
Mr. Chairman, can I make just two requests of Mr. Hart and Mr. Gates? If you would aim this microphone at yourself, and there's a little button, the bulb will illuminate green when it's on. So we just want to be able to hear everybody that's for those that watch it on YouTube and watch the meeting later. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, you're in my Thank you very much. All right, I'm going to go through a quick PowerPoint presentation to tell you what this, as your council mentioned, the evaluation or appraisal report and our comprehensive plan update. It is required every 7 years. For some reason, Keystone didn't do it the last time, so you're going a little bit farther. But we'll go over that. But the good thing is, when this whole process of planning started with our with our code, the statutes, back when our first comprehensive plans were required, you used to have to do it a year. You did it a year, which basically said, we're going to change this policy, we're going to change this policy. You sent it to the state and said, we think that's good. And then you have to come back and then change the policies. At least now, the year is a little bit easier in the respect you kind of tell what you see the differences looking forward for the next 7 years. But then you can go through your comp plan and actually adopt it. So when you send the whole package together as one, so it saves about a year or two of effort, and it's a lot better. So we're in better shape. So if you want to move on. So as I said, that we're required to do it every 7 years. The state we notify the state by June 1st. We did, to tell them that we want to prepare an year to prepare the evaluation and appraisal report. And there were, like I said, there was one scheduled in 2018 that wasn't done, but it's water on the bridge, we're moving forward. So nobody can find that record of that. But it was the comprehensive plan you're working on now was adopted in 2011, so we need to review it for updates since that time. We can do the year and the comp plan, as I said, simultaneously, and we need to be transmitted to the state. It says by June 1st, 2026. I think we're actually a little bit earlier because we sent the letter off and it's sometime in May.
7 May.
7 May. But the funny thing about the state now, if you don't get it in on time, not that I plan not to, the only thing they can do is tell you can't amend your comp plan. So it's
Which, as you can see, we've only had one since 2022.
Right, exactly. So it's like, it's not that big a deal. But for somebody like the city of Jacksonville, Clay County, that would be a major problem. And then after that, adoption, we have to plan to have an adoption of the hearing after the state's reviewed it. The next slide. So we have to do two things. We have to do is kind of, as Rich mentioned, we have to do statutory-based changes. Those are any changes that we need to do based on any statutes that have been changed since 2012. Anything the legislature have told us we can or can't do, i.e. like, for instance, what they keep telling us about the Airbnbs. Let's say you had a requirement in your comp plan that you wanted to have one, now you have to take that out. That's an idea. And then any local issues that you feel are needed to be consistent with how you as a town wants to move forward. So you to address those local issues. Next. So these are just some things that I know Clay County, and the way that the state sets us up, the county is kind of goes in first, so Clay County already had to do their year comp plan update work, and all the municipalities are coming behind them. There's some building design requirements that were in the statute, talk something about solar facilities, electrical substation, and then the biggest thing is that our planning horizon has to change, because obviously we're looking at a new 7-year period at least to move forward. So those are some of the statutory requirements that we'll have to address, and there might be, and there'll probably be some more. I think I did this a couple of months ago based on the current changes in the the legislature just passed in this session. Next. So what do we need to do? We need to look at all the maps to make sure the maps are correct. We have to look at our level of service standards. There's requirement in the, goes back to the original legislation that required comp plans back in the 80s. It said you can't have development if you do not have a basic level of service. This is really, it's traffics, you have to look at traffic, you have to look at water and sewer, and that's a big, for not you as much because you're with CCUA, but with a lot of small towns, they were approving development that didn't have water or sewer for them. The state said, can't do that. So what they say, you have to have it's what we call concurrency, which is the same thing with schools. You have to have, the capacity has to be available at the time the impact's gonna happen. So let's say you're doing a major project, you might not need to have all those seats for kids today, but by the time all those houses come online, you would have to have the capacity. The same thing with water and sewer. So we need to look at our level of service standards for, and recreation's another one. And then look at, there are in your comprehensive plan, all of them have some dates or requirements. We will do something by 2020. Well, if you didn't do it by 2020, do we still want to do it, or do we need to change that date? So that's another update that is going to have to be done. You know, anything that we left out, we felt that needs to be added. Any conflicts between the comprehensive plan and your code, you made a code change, but you make a comprehensive plan. Like I noticed when I was reading your writing the staff report, it says your land use map says residential single family, but then when you read the written part, it says residential single family includes multifamily. So, you know, so that if somebody was looking at it from outside, they'd say, well, you can't do multifamily. Yeah, you can, you just have to look at the book. So the map and the book should be consistent. As well as if you had zoning that didn't, if you're saying 6 units per acre, and let's say you had a land development code that allowed 8 units per acre, well, you gotta have something that makes that consistent between your comp plan and your zoning. So those are the things we need to look at. If there's anything that's conflicting between the different elements of the code, the elements of the comprehensive plan, and to make sure that we're moving forward. One of the biggest things that we need to do that everybody else has done, but for some reason, because you didn't update your plan, you didn't, is a water supply facilities work plan, which is done through basically the water management district did it for everybody that's in the St. Johns River Water Management District, and then they require every local government to do a water supply facilities work plan, or the statute did. You haven't done it, not a big deal, because again, as I talked to my friend who works with those water management district that would review it, he said, if you did a comp plan amendment, he would have said, you have not done your water supply facilities work plan, but now he knows we're working on it, so that'll be done. And again, they're not as concerned because you use CCUA. If you were your own utility, they'd probably be a little bit more concerned. Next. So you have there's goals, objectives, and policies, and that is your comp plan. All the background data is not, you don't adopt that, that's not part of your comp plan, but it is the goals, objectives, and policies. And the elements that you need to have are future land use, which is the most important. If anybody, and I know Rich or myself, ever gone to trial, it's all because of future land use. The other one it might be is on traffic circulation and housing, your community facilities, which is your potable water, your sanitary sewer, drainage, that's in your community facilities. Conservation, you are not a coastal community, so you do not have to do a coastal management element, which if you were on the county, I mean, if you're like St. Johns County, you have to do, or St. Augustine, you would have to do a coastal management element, a recreation open space, intergovernmental coordination, capital improvements, and public school facilities. What's really important, I know, like with recreation and open space, we want to make sure there might be policies in it that will help you if you were going after grant, because they'll say, is this implementing your comprehensive plan? And you got to be able to show them, yes, I have policies that this is implementing. Next. Things that I looked at in looking at updating your comprehensive plan is a reorganization. Right now, your plan is this thick, and it's
Yeah, I
big.
have an email and it goes on forever.
Right. And it's your policies are the goals, objectives, policies are in between the data analysis, and we need to reorganize and get it so when somebody's looking at your comp plan, you're just looking at the goals, objectives, of the policy. So that's some reorganization. Not a big deal, just something happened. As I mentioned, the water supply facilities work plan is an appendix. It's an appendix to that community facilities element. And then we want to review and revise your future land use categories. Like I said, you only have one residential category as I see it. You might decide now, looking forward, you might want to have two. You might want to have a higher density one to promote some multifamily. Those are kind of the ideas that you might, and you can kind of decide where we think that should be.
We currently have a mixed use area just a
Right.
little further north of here.
Right,
Which
yeah.
can be either or for future development, just the way I understand that code, or future development, we can do something else with it.
Right, and that might be, but that's what I'm saying, that's just an example of something that you might want. You look at those densities and intensities of your density of residential and then your commercial and the intensity of that development. So update the future land use map is only for, came up, the councilor behind me, the future land use map is only for those properties within the city limits. So like your airport and the cemetery that's not in the city limits, they're not in your comprehensive plan. Not sure if that makes sense or not, but that's how state statute is. As I said, we would update any dates, review the need for any annual reviews in the old comp plans when they're originally written. We would have, by this date, annually do this, annually do that, and nobody did half the stuff, so let's be consistent with what we're actually doing. And then anything that you said, we want to adopt such a policy, and you've adopted it, there's no reason to keep it in the comp plan anymore. Or it might be something you want to maintain, we need to go through. Next. So just kind of looking ahead, I think when we met with the council, when I gave this kind of same presentation to the council, they wanted to have some sort of joint workshop. So probably because I know the council doesn't meet in July, it's probably sometime in August. This is just my recommendation. I'm not saying it hasn't been approved by anybody, but.
Yeah, I would say probably October.
Okay.
Because August, September is generally when.
Oh, budget, you're right.
Budget workshops and budget approval.
Right, so everything's kind of moved forward a couple of
So the
months.
city is saying let's go to October instead of August.
My suggestion is there are a number of things that the city council has to do
Yeah,
by
that's
setting
right.
maximum
Okay.
millage, tentative millage and budget, tentative
Okay.
and final millage and
Yeah.
budget. Because you already have extra meetings at the city council, and sometimes this can be intensive depending on what the budgetary needs are.
I understand.
That if you really want to get the council's attention, I would say I would wait till October when they can focus purely on your comp plan.
I understand. I just wanted to, that's the last thing I want to do is overburden city staff, because if we meet in the evening, which means someone has to work overtime. So I would definitely like to limit that as much as possible.
Okay, so anyways, and a lot of this stuff I'm gonna be doing even if you haven't had your joint workshop yet, so it's not like, I mean, that we might push it ahead. But so the first is once we review the goals, objectives, and policies, and so one of the things I want to do is get it down to that so you can know what you're reviewing. And then look at your categories, and so, and looking at that would be the next couple of months. And then hopefully at the beginning of the year, we would, of 2026, we would have kind of a draft year-end comprehensive plan update. And then going into, we'd have to have an official, you as the local planning agency, as designated state statute, you would sometime in March, hopefully, we could have a, what we call your recommendation to the council for your, of the draft, and then moving on to council, they would have a transmittal hearing, hopefully in April-ish, April, early May. And then it goes to Tallahassee, to the Department of, I think they're still called Commerce this week, they didn't rename them. But with the state, and then about 10 other agencies, Water Management District, we sent it to Clay County, we sent it to DOT, they have about 30 days to review it, to decide if they like it or not. Lately, they don't really say much, so I don't think that they would have a big concern, but we have to give them that opportunity, and then we come back for a final adoption, like next summer. So, I mean, the biggest thing is probably the water supply plan. The Water Management District might have any comments with, but usually what I do in other communities I work with is when we have a draft, I send it to the person at the Water Management District that's going to be reviewing it anyways, and so I'd rather get his comments before we adopt than what I say, get the nasty gram, at least if there's any comments. So when it comes, the final draft comes to you for your recommendation to council and for transmittal, we would already know that the Water Management District would be fine with it. And one of the biggest things is looking at population projections is when we do the year, is where we think it's growing, how the town's going to grow. So. And I know that was a lot, but any questions?
I just have a question of me. Green light, Charlie. In Wisconsin, where I used to practice, we had extraterritorial zoning where the city could control within a mile and a half outside the city limits, had at least a veto power. When a comp plan is being considered, should we be considering the compatibility of uses within the city versus along, say, a certain boundary line outside of the city? Is compatibility sort of extraterritorial zoning in essence?
Well, we do send, and you send a comprehensive plan amendment to, like, we will send ours to this one for Keystone would go to Clay, and I would think it would go to Latchwood too, just because of your boundary. Bradford.
Okay.
So they would look at it generally, so they could look at it all, but also every amendment that would have large scale, was over 50 acres, they have a chance to look at it. But yes, you do look at compatibility if it matters. I.e., when I gave that recommendation, I kind of said, I looked at the other outside the, Clay County, what was on the other side of the county line, we will look, and vice versa. They will send, Clay County will send Keystone a comprehensive plan amendment that affects this area.
So in coming up with a plan, we should be considering compatibility even though it's land sitting outside of the city.
Yes, I would.
At least give it some weight.
Yeah, yes, for sure. I mean, like the biggest, I think, argument, I guess I could say, is a nice way of saying it, when I was working with Green Code, they wanted to put an industrial plant right outside the city limits. The city council was not real happy. It was in the county, but they felt it was not compatible with what was in the city. So they definitely had a right to come to public hearing just like anybody else. And they also wrote, they get a heads up because they statutorily has to get a copy of that amendment. So yeah. Okay.
I think you're back to any questions, and then if not, council discussion.
Real quick, Chairman, members of the board, I'm Jamie Booth, city engineer, and whatever else Charlie wants me to do for the city. One of the things I've been tasked with is kind of overseeing the comprehensive plan project, or comprehensive plan effort from the city's perspective, city staff, immediate staff. Janice, real quick, as we look to in August, or if we're talking October for the workshop, what would you recommend for either members of the city council or members of the planning and zoning board look at ahead of the workshop to help set conditions where when we go into that workshop, it's as effective as it possibly can be, or the same question for, I guess, throughout the EAR process and comprehensive plan rewrite, what should the members of the board or the council be looking at?
To look at the map, so when you ride around, you get an idea of something you do or don't like, and then also look at the goals, objectives, and policy, something that, you know, look at those ahead. That's why I want to make it a little bit easier for you, get it in a format that's easier, instead of being like 90, 100 pages, that it's 10, or whatever it will end up being, I don't know. So then you can just kind of go through it at your own leisure and between the time, so that you can look and say, I don't like this, or I like this, and you might, my gut feeling is 90 or 80% of it everybody's fine with, but those of us that have had to go to court to, you know, say the line, it's 1 or 2 policies that they find that they argue about. So obviously those are the ones we want to look at, and the land use densities are usually the most controversial. That's what I'm saying. But that's what you want to do. Make sure that there are goals, and if there's something as you see as this board that we're not addressing, is how you see the city of Keystone Pride should grow, that's we want to add a policy to protect you that way too. Or promote it, whichever way you want to look at it.
And the city did send to us in our city email their comprehensive plan as an attachment. So please look at it.
Yep, so you'll be seeing me again.
Thank you. Next questions are done. Anybody have any comments?
Mr. Chairman, and Mr. Wright, feel free to jump in. Just as a matter of housekeeping, the Planning and Zoning Committee has not been super active, and that's on me, just kind of getting my feet under me and addressing things. So I can't remember either the attorney or Ms. Stewart suggested meeting monthly. Are y'all good with that? We'll be putting out an advertisement for a 5th member, but I just want to set expectations.
So generally it helps to at least have it scheduled monthly.
Yeah.
And then if there's nothing that would be on the agenda, it's easy enough to cancel them, but at least then you have the time set aside.
So essentially what I would ask the Planning and Zoning Board is the second Monday of every month, the week following the city council meeting, is to be prepared for a meeting. If we don't have anything, and we'll do our best, as Charlie said, getting our feet underneath us, you know, to get stuff out to you ahead of time. If we do have, you know, some action items, we tried to get you the stuff for tonight. Granted, it was only Friday afternoon, but trying to get stuff out to you ahead of time. But if we don't have anything, I'll give you as much notice, you know, with the previous week to say, okay, well, you know, there's no action items that we need to take care of this month. So.
I don't know where we are with the webpage. I know that's sort of a constant thing to look at, but I went to the webpage and I did not find the agenda for this meeting.
Okay.
It was not scheduled.
It's the schedule, I don't know, the packet's there.
Yes, sir.
Maybe it's there now. But I didn't see it. But it is.
It was there
Maybe I just
on
overlooked it.
Friday.
And I'm not being
trying
critical.
no, sir, you're right. My goal since I've been here is to get it out a week early, any agenda. Usually I'm about 4 or 5 days out has been where I can.
So I just call you and say, Charlie, we have a meeting coming up.
What in the heck? Text me. It's all my fault. Whether
No,
good, bad, or indifferent.
No, the gas blame.
I'm not picking on anybody.
But in keeping with the city's desires and with the upcoming scheduling we just were informed about, I would encourage us all, city included, to go ahead and go forward with the proposal timeline as was brought to us here, but shift it 2 months to the right. The proposal said August, how will we move it to October, and then all the dates after that be 2 months to the right. That way then it doesn't, hopefully, I know you guys are busy, but hopefully it won't overburden the city staff. The timeline, from what I understand, sounds pretty consistent. Even if you move it 2 months to the right, we can still accomplish all of our goals in the set timeline in 2026.
Okay.
Does that sound fair? Sound fair to you? Mr. Ray?
Very good.
Okay.
Well,
yeah.
we certainly appreciate your service, and again, you know, with so many new members on the board. I think this is the first P and Z meeting we've had in
About a year.
a long time. So appreciate you guys' service and willingness to serve the community. And we got a lot of things coming up. So yeah, so stay tuned. There's some.
In the immediate future though, since we are going to go ahead with the workshop in October, why don't we go ahead and put us on the agenda schedule for August?
Okay.
And then if we have to cancel, we'll cancel.
Sure.
And then same thing with September and October. This will get the city in the habit of scheduling, and it'll get us in the habit of looking at our emails.
Absolutely.
That is, I mean, I know, I look at mine about once every 3 or 4 days, and I'm assuming everyone else does about the same. And I understand one of us here doesn't have his email set up, so hopefully we can get that squared away.
So I do have personal emails and
Please do both
planning
for
and
the time
zoning.
being.
So I've got that squared away now. So we're in good shape there.
Yes, please do both for the time being.
Sure.
I appreciate
Mr.
you.
Chairman, I'm sure everybody's aware of this, but don't use the email system to discuss anything with substance.
That's right.
Correct.
Business.
Yeah.
You can discuss nuts and bolts and housekeeping, that's about it.
That's right.
Correct.
Yes, sir.
Yes, for sunshine laws. Yes.
Very good.
And you can talk to Bo, or you can ask me if you have
Yeah.
a question. Just,
Well, I can
or
ask Speedy.
I don't have your email.
Bo will send it
I'll
out
send it to you.
to everybody.
I'll make a note and send it to you.
Yeah, that's good.
Okay.
Will there be a meeting on the second Monday of July?
No, sir.
No, so the next meeting should be Monday, August 11th.
Yes, sir.
And then the September meeting, the second Monday would be September the 8th.
That'll be a
That's
city
probably gonna get
council
moved.
meeting.
Well, yeah, but that's the problem is because Monday the 1st is Labor Day. I would say you probably would move that meeting, I would think, to the 15th.
Yes, sir.
So, and we'll do a better job of putting it on the city calendar, and I will do a better job of letting you guys know, way ahead of time. If it's Labor Day or a holiday, or if city council decides to move their meeting back, I'll make sure I do a good job of giving you guys appropriate
Now, it
notice.
would not hurt for for August and September, the comprehensive plan be an email, and then we could just come together and discuss it.
Sure.
Just to get us looking at it.
Sure.
Before our workshop, so
Okay.
we can at least have something intelligent
Sure.
to say.
Comprehensive plan is pretty large, isn't it?
No, but I'm gonna.
You're gonna send the revised, okay, gotcha.
I'm
Okay.
gonna
Reorganize it.
We're not sending the whole,
Organize
we're not
it.
sending the whole comp plan, okay, gotcha. Okay. So we'll get the revisions out, and we won't send the whole comp plan to you, so we won't bury you in a couple hundred pages or
Yeah,
whatever.
we'll
it
just
is.
break it down in a couple of chapters.
Absolutely.
We may end up just starting with a new one based on Ms. Fleet's recommendations.
I counted on it.
So that we'll do instead of doing a strike through underline, we'll just do a complete replacement.
That sounds fair.
It'll make it easier for you in trying to review it.
And I think you guys, and you all have my email address. If you need me for anything, please don't hesitate, to let me know. And
So we can just say front desk at Bo, right?
so my email address is Wright, WRIGHT,
WRG.
WRIGHT, at KeystoneHeights.us.
Thank you.
Okay,
I'm sure it's in the email, but.
that's fine. If you need me.
If I don't write it down, it doesn't get.
I understand. I'm right there with you. If you need me for anything, if you got a question, give me a shout. If I don't have the answer, I'll reach out to somebody much smarter than me. So
Yeah, that's the whole world for me.
I understand. Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you. So we got the committee discussion, we've already set aside an action plan to get us moving forward to the end of the year. Anybody else have anything to add?
I have a lot to learn.
So do we.
Why don't you introduce yourself? You came in to a couple minutes, in fact, the records probably show that you were here.
I did. I don't know why I had this on my calendar tomorrow evening. My name is Gregory Gay. I live 2 blocks that way. And I wanted to be involved and be a help if I can, and I have a lot to learn.
We appreciate
Well,
your
you're
help.
helping.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
So I propose we go ahead and adjourn ourselves.
Let's do that.
Yeah, let's do it. Bang. I'm sorry to hear that about